Jared.
Jared, nice to meet you.
Carlos. What's
Mike.
your name? Ryan? Mike.
Yeah. Nice
So
to meet you.
how do we start this
Heck
to
yeah.
be like organic?
Oh, just keep talking.
Just keep
We're
talking?
gonna cut it up anyway, so.
Okay,
Fair.
so what were you saying? You were saying you want to expound a little bit more on like why you don't think it's going to be it's not something we have to worry about right away. That's kind of what you're
it's
saying.
still in development. Like, there's still. I mean, I get that they already have like a bunch of prototypes out and running, and like they're doing well for what they are. As far as like self-driving cars and stuff. I don't know if that's mostly like Google or if that's other people that's doing it, but regardless, like it takes a while to develop that type of thing, and it takes even longer for public approval to start being like, yeah, let's totally allow this, and let's get rid of the drivers. Like, they can sleep on the wheel. Like,
Well, when do you go ahead?
if we're talking like an Uber service or something on those lines, I'm assuming there wouldn't be a driver, which is definitely a huge step up from having like one person in the car to having 0 people in the car.
Oh yeah.
But
You're familiar with Elon Musk's like robo-taxi force he plans to put out?
I am not.
So it's very simple. He just plans to deploy a fleet of some of his cars so that when someone needs an Uber, instead of using an Uber, they could just use the Tesla app to get a Tesla.
Oh, okay.
An empty car would pull up, and then they could just go in and it would take them. The other option, the other way they would be making money from this is individuals that own their Tesla could have it be like loaned out so that you can just use your app. I have my Tesla, and you need a ride. I can just let mine just go while I'm at work. And then
Oh,
you can
wow.
use it.
That's
So-
already like present?
No, that's not present.
Okay,
yet.
that's in the future. Gotcha.
Yes. Elon is a little bit optimistic with his dates, with his release dates.
Sure,
but he estimates 2020 for it to be cleared by the regulatory bodies. And you're right. When they have that, it's not going to be like overnight. But approximately when do you think we should start to pay attention on like a political level with this, considering how much, when those jobs are gone, they're gone?
Yeah. I guess like I'm confused. Well, all right. So at what point do we need to start like worrying about it? Like I feel like we're already kind of there to an extent. Like they're already like, I don't know. I guess it's hard to say because they're not on the road yet, and it's kind of just like an on-off switch between are they allowed and are they not allowed, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I'm sure it'll probably be introduced like statewide or something for a while before it gets like national, or I don't know. I don't know the policies behind it, but like,
Go ahead.
as soon as it's on, it's just gonna be there and it's gonna be present. So,
So you see how some of these. Well, I guess my question is, the original question we're out here is to understand to what extent will there be job loss due to automation in our lifetime? And the autonomous car example is something that's easy for people to understand.
Yeah.
But you, given that you have a computer science background, would have a better, larger picture of the future of technology as well.
Ideally.
So, ideally. How do you see, what if you could put a number, a percent, on the job loss due to automation in our future, 50 years or 30 years, 50 years, where would you put it? 50%, more or less?
It could hit 50%. I guess it kind of depends because it's kind of been escalating for a while between like factory job workers getting replaced and like a lot of the lower end things. But then you have stores like the Amazon store that are fully automated, like you don't need any cashiers and stuff. And you'll also have like there's a lot of cool tools for like doctors to use now that it's not really reducing the number of jobs of doctors, but it's reducing the like requirement for the doctor. Well, I guess that kind of helps the jobs. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't thought about that. But anyways, it's definitely going to be going up, and I'd say I'm not sure I can give you a percent, but a decent number of people, let's say like 30%, are going to be losing their jobs.
Oh, okay. So 30% in our lifetime. That's what you think?
In our lifetime?
Yeah.
Well, our lifetimes, that's a while, but I mean, I'm only 23, so.
Given it's, let's say, it's 80-year lifespan approximately.
Okay. Well, technology advances super rapidly.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like exponential curve.
Yes, that's correct.
Exponential growth there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, yeah, probably like 30% would be reasonable, maybe 40. But I guess that's just saying like all jobs. Like it kind of depends on what technologies get developed more. Because I feel like it's kind of a requirement to have a certain number of jobs for like the lower, for like the younger people, like teenagers and people going in college and stuff, to have a job at something like Chipotle or, like those kind of simple jobs. And even though AIs could replace them, it's kind of going to need to have a role in society for that to like function to an extent.
I agree that like it would be just strange for us to have this transition where, from having jobs to like not having jobs, living in some kind of have you ever seen the movie WALL-E?
I have, yeah.
Living in some kind of WALL-E world, like we see that as like dystopian. We see it as our jobs are going away, and that's it's like our meaning of our lives is being lost. But I personally didn't feel like the meaning of my life was lost when I left my job at Target.
That's fair, yeah.
I think that this meaning that we're losing is it's not an excuse, but we need to have some kind of purpose, and we ascribe that purpose to our job usually because that's what brings us value.
Yeah.
But seeing as the utility function of a business is to decrease the expenses, and employees are a large expense, there's just a natural flow of trying to decrease the number of employees you would have.
Yeah,
at a
that
company.
would make sense.
So there's a business incentive to drive this effort. And then once you start to, like you said, approach 30% or 50% of job loss, then you're going to have to radically reshape society. This is one of the problems that we've discussed before. How do you, perhaps this is too far looking forward, but if you can imagine this kind of WALL-E type world, where would you see our meaning in our lives coming from, if not from our jobs?
I guess at that point it would be leadership, because AIs are just simply not really capable of... This is more a philosophical question at this point, but AIs aren't like particularly capable of like human thought and human progression, I guess. So humans are always going to be there to kind of like take the leading role and develop the newer things, even if they use technology to develop them. I feel like at that point, if we're that far in the future, we'll become more idea men, and we'll have the robots do the work for us. But
the issue is, it seems like yes, ideally we would become idea men, but if you look in the past, it seems like the tools that we have, the cutting edge technologies, are immediately weaponized. And I'm not just bashing the military industrial complex as a whole, but it just typically historically is the case.
Yeah, it gets you power. It makes sense.
I mean, like Einstein came up with his theory of relativity, and that was applied to help make the nuclear weapons in World War II. Data analytics, I mean, you know this from your front-end design. Data analytics from apps are being used to monitor citizens more, and I guess the point is that there seems to be more of an effort to, if there's a way for it to be used in personal gain, then it is, as opposed to us looking at the like wholesome opportunities that could exist. It typically falls into some kind of capitalistic structure that is not best for everyone.
Yeah.
So, do you think there is any way we can be mitigating that, so reduce the amount of, maybe not weaponization exactly, but to kind of rescue the human back from this technology?
It's an interesting question. Because it is a fair argument to say that like it's going to be used more and more for like companies, but the reality is like the techie people, I guess, usually don't have those kinds of incentives. Well, I guess that's not really true. I don't know. When I think of like the great inventors for technology, like Bill Gates or I don't know, random filthy rich people now, I usually think of them like really trying to develop something that they can call their own and make something new. And usually it doesn't seem like there's any like malicious intent behind it. Whereas like the business people will more focus on like the how do I make a profit off of this? How do I develop this further? Not so much focusing on like the benefits of the product and the humanity aspect of it to an extent. I don't know, maybe that's just pessimistic view, but there is definitely a progression towards trying to just like make money off of things, and I don't know, I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
Well, I have another question for you. So earlier you said you're not sure about the competency of AI becoming sufficiently similar to humans for there to be a dramatic subversion in the economy. Then my question is, question number one, do you know what the technological singularity is?
I do not. I'm not familiar with that.
So it's that's like a phrase used to describe the point at which artificial intelligence would surpass the collective human intelligence. So that would be artificial, super intelligence. It would be super meaning it's just better than the collective human effort.
Okay.
There's a man named Ray Kurzweil who is he made a electric keyboard company, and he made a bunch of
all in incentives we're kind of just born to survive. They're forced to just like build out whatever they're set to do. They have to have goals, whereas humans kind of don't.
I would counter that by saying we do have goals, and that's in our limbic system. Can I eat it? Can I have sex with it? Will it kill me? Those three things your brain is looking at all the time, because we have this big hunk of meat on top of the limbic system, but the limbic system is what most of the mammals have. All the mammals have that, and other animals have similar structures. So that's, I would argue, that is our utility function. And then the other part is this intelligence that achieves those goals. So that blade of grass has the same utility function as Genghis Khan, and the manifestations are very different, but they still have this desire to, number one, exist, self-preservation. And when the utility function is self-preservation, turning off an AI, if that's even possible, would become a challenge, because if its utility function is to stay alive, it's going to resist being shut off by its human counterparts. And looking at another thought experiment explaining this problem is the paperclip maximizer. Are you familiar with the paperclip maximizer?
I'm not.
Thought experiment. It's pretty fun. I can't remember who came up with it, but it goes like this. You have a company that manufactures paperclips, and you have an AI and you give it the utility function of just make more paperclips, and then it slowly starts bulldozing down all the city streets and buildings, and converting all the carbon into paperclips. It starts destroying the world to do this very, very simple task. So even if its utility function is what we think would be good or perfect, there's still ways that it can go awry. And I don't know.
It makes sense, but I don't know. I just can't accept that an AI would be able to gain that sort of incentive to I don't know what the right word is for it, free will to an extent, because all it can really do is it can learn from the past, and AI to this point, to what we've trained it to do, is only capable of looking at previous situations and kind of predicting what's going to happen. That's as far as it can go. It can't make a decision on its own. It can just predict it and go with all right, this is a 75% outcome, that's what I'm going to go with. And that's it can't just make a creative thought but what if this was to happen? That's not able for it to do to an extent. Does that make sense?
It does. And I guess this conversation does bleed into a lot of areas. So this touches on the philosophical concept of consciousness, and and within that, free will, if we even have free will. There's a group of people, the people that believe we don't actually have free will, and that free will is an illusion, they're referred to as the illusionists. It certainly feels like you have the decisions that you're making, but if I ask you, like, why didn't you do your homework, you can't really give me like a good answer. Even if you had the time, you sat down to do it, but then you ended up playing on Reddit instead.
Yeah.
So there does seem to be this weird duality, this dialogue between like the conscious, this thing that we were referring to as our first-person subjective conscious experience, and our just the mechanics of our physiology, it's hard to come down either way. We are determined beings, or we are conscious agents that have free will. It's hard to come down on either one, but that issue then crosses over to the artificial intelligence discussion, because if it is true that we are just determined, then we could look at artificial intelligence in the same light, that while we are determined, we do seem to have this ability to experience and decide things, and I could, like, if I decide to have a sandwich, I won't feel like anyone else forced me to do that, but that is the product of me being a carbon-based organism that has a metabolism, that lives in a certain culture to desire a sandwich. So there's this all these other preconditions that you didn't decide, all this other input you didn't decide, that is really what is controlling you. If we can say the same thing for AI, then there's no reason that it can't be any bit as sentient as us and as conscious as us.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm not really sure how to retort that. The thing is, it's so far in the future. It's like trying to predict the next like crazy technological advancement that's going to happen. Like, usually it's a breakthrough because it's something people didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess as far as a current standpoint, it's definitely too limited. But as far as a future standpoint, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
So my next question is, if we are able to have better artificial intelligence and have it be controlled well, and given we have the proper legislation in place, do you think we could have some kind of approach something like a utopia, where we have these surplus resources where people can, for example, survive on a universal basic income funded by